This is the Untold Italy Travel Podcast, and you are listening to episode number 229.
Ciao a tutti and benvenuti to Untold Italy, the travel podcast where you go to the towns and villages, mountains and lakes, hills and coastlines of Bella Italia. Each week, your host, Katy Clarke, takes you on a journey in search of magical landscapes, history, culture, wine, gelato, and, of course, a whole lot of pasta. If you're dreaming of Italy and planning future adventures there, you've come to the right place.
Ciao a tutti, benvenuti. Welcome to another Italian wine episode, and this time we're visiting the beautiful Puglia region. Our friends Olivia and Andrea from Italian Wine Tales are here to tell you all about this exciting and up-and-coming wine region that's emerging from being historically an area of mass wine production rather than a place known for refined and curated wines. We've chatted about the renaissance that's going on in Puglia in just about everything, tourism, food, and the rejuvenation of cities. And now it's time to talk about Pugliese wine. It's an exciting time to visit Puglia, so let's hear all about what you'll be drinking when you get there. Bentornati, welcome back to the Untold Italy podcast, Andrea and Olivia.
Ciao, Katy.
Ciao, Katy.
Ciao, everyone.
Yay, hooray, so good to chat with you again. Now, what's new in the world of Italian wine?
Ooh, what have we been drinking lately? Well, actually, I just did our order for our wedding. We're having a little brindisi in the piazza afterwards. And since it's going to be in Umbria, I decided to order some sparkling wine from one of our favourite wineries in Umbria. They do a sparkling rosé and a sparkling white, and it's called Cinino, which means little thing in Umbrian dialect. So I thought that was a nice touch. So that's what our guests will have to look forward to.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope you got quite a few bottles of that rosé because, as you know, I do like a rosé. Anyway, that was a bit of a cheeky question because, of course, wine has been evolving in Italy since well before the Romans, as you know.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, it's so great to have you back. And before we get started on talking about a region that we're really passionate about, can you quickly give everyone a quick bio and let them know why you're so thrilled to talk about Italian wine?
We're thrilled to talk about Italian wine because we have our own blog and Instagram page, which is called Italian Wine Tales, where we try to talk about Italian wine in a friendly way, so that it's accessible to everyone, but giving the right information so that you can get accustomed to the Italian wines.
Yeah, we're both undertaking our sommelier certificate at the moment. And, yeah, that led us to become more passionate about Italian wine and create Italian Wine Tales.
Yeah, and you're doing such a great job. And it's so great to, I think, just not simplify, but just make it, as you say, more accessible, because I think wine appreciation and tasting can be a little bit intimidating at times, and it's great to have it in a more friendly way, as you say. I've been looking forward to today's chat because, of course, we're going to explore the wine of one of our favourite regions in Puglia, which is also one of Italy's biggest wine producing regions, but I'm sure one that not a lot of people know much about. So you can help everyone picture what it's like. Can you describe Puglia and its geography and point out maybe where the winemaking areas are?
Yes. So for everyone that doesn't know where Puglia is, first of all, picture Italy, so the boot. And Puglia is right at the hill, so southeast of Italy. It's on the sea. It's a very beautiful region, especially in summer, where wine is now becoming an up and important part of their economy and their part of the society. It wasn't until the 1970s where a big change in philosophy of wine production happened, and it focused mainly at the beginning on a wine called Negroamaro, a red wine. And now, still to this day, there is a lot of red wine produced there, Negroamaro or Primitivo, which is the most famous one. And for the American listeners, you might know it as the Zinfandel, the same grape, just produced differently, of course.
But it's interesting, Puglia, because for a long time, you know, it is one of the biggest wine producers, but it was all bulk wine and was being sent all over Italy and even in France to cut wine. And it was the white Pugliese wine was actually being used as the base for vermouth. which was interesting. So it's, not really until more recent times that Pugliese wine has started to, they've improved the methods of producing in the cellar, but also in the vineyards. And it still hasn't reached its full potential. So I think this is a wine region to watch. And you can also get a lot of, really good value wines from Puglia at the moment too. But it's definitely an up-and-coming one. So we'll see some really interesting wines coming out of this region in years to come.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it, how we're seeing Puglia. It's a little bit under the radar. It's sort of going about its own business, like quietly, just, building up expertise, not just in winemaking, but also in tourism. But there's a lot of similarities there. And, I think it's really fascinating. And it's exciting to watch an area where they're not bound by so much tradition, so they've got a little bit more artistic license maybe to try some new things.
Yeah, I was saying that it's interesting because there are red wines, as I said, but white wines and rosés as well, which I might talk about later a bit more, because especially for the rosé wine, there is a little interesting and curious story about it, which I'll tell you later when we come to it.
Okay. All right. So let's get a little bit deeper into the region and the wines. And so where do you want to start, red or white, or we'll leave rosé to the end?
Yeah, maybe we start with the red wines because we should say that most of the wine produced in the area is red or rosé. And so the main grapes are Negroamaro, Primitivo, which Andrea mentioned before, and the Troia grape, Uva di Troia. And, the wines down here, Puglia is a very hot region. They have hot summers and mild winters. And all of that to say is that, therefore, the wines are quite alcoholic normally too. So they're big, they're fruit forward. There's nothing kind of, they're not, they're a big glass of wine is what I'm trying to say.
It's hard to drink them by themselves.
Yes.
It's better to drink them while you're eating a meal.
They pair perfectly with the food down there.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of vegetable-based dishes in Puglia, but also a lot of meat-based dishes too, which you might not think at first, given that they're also on the coast. But they do have a big tradition of lots of sausages and baked lamb and, meat like this, which goes perfectly with the Primitivo from Manduria, or, one of the, even Bombino Nero is another red wine grape.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Maybe these wines may be a little bit more familiar to our palates as people from, as they like to say in the UK, call us the New World. So the New World wines, like from California or from Australia, they're like a bit more bold and they've got a lot more, I guess, flavour. It's a bit more punch in the face kind of, or punch in the mouth.
That's the words I'm looking for. I think especially if people like a big, bold red and they're looking for something that's kind of the most top quality in Puglia, you'd look for a Primitivo di Manduria, DOC. So we've spoken in other episodes about what DOC means, like a mark of quality. And this is a really strong, full-bodied wine. And when we say full-bodied, we really do mean full-bodied. It's aged in a barrique. You can expect, like those candied fruits, fig, almonds, licorice, tobacco. That's a delicious wine, but a foodie wine, obviously. You're not having that for aperitivo hour.
Tell me, what's a barrique?
A barrique is a wooden barrel. That's a good question.
Yes, it's where you put wine to age, especially red wine, and it gives this. Often you can find it when you have an aftertaste of like licorice or tobacco, those like
vanilla even.
Yes, exactly. And it's very important also the oak or the wood that it's made of. Especially there are some woods that are specifically grown in parts of Europe like Slovenia or France, which are specifically grown just to make barriques, because it's very important the wood that you use. So,
for example, they would not really use at all here, for obvious reasons, American oak, because they've got the European oak, but it's also a little bit more porous. And
you have to smoke it before you use it. And then, of course, the more you use it over time, the better it is, because it absorbs the wine and it lets the wine breathe as well. Because it's, as she said, it's porous, so air can filter through in and out, and it helps the wine age correctly.
So where will we find these wines? So if we think about the main towns in Puglia, we've got Bari, which is the capital, which we had heard about on the podcast a few weeks ago, and that's on the coast. And a lot of people probably know Alberobello and maybe Lecce. So where were these wine growing regions?
So we have wine producing areas, especially in Valle d'Itria, Martina Franca, and Cisternino.
The Itria Valley.
Exactly, the Itria Valley, yes, exactly. Something also, yes, produced around Bari, but I would suggest especially Alberobello, not only for the wine producing itself, but because it's also a very beautiful town and it's amazing to visit.
The Trulli houses.
Exactly, they have the typical Pugliese houses, which are called the Trulli. They're very magical. If you manage to go and visit, it's a magical experience.
And in the Val d'Itria as well, the Itria Valley, Locorotondo is another town that we also visit on our tour, by the way, in Puglia, but they produce a lot of wine, and there's a place there where you can even go and have an aperitivo in the vineyards. You can just walk down from the town, so we can put that in the show notes maybe. And so it's full of vineyards in the Itria Valley. Near Lecce, you've got to get out a little bit. Lecce is like the town and around of Lecce, they don't really produce wine. So you've got to kind of go back up towards Ostuni, where they produce lots of wine, and they've got a really interesting wine that is produced also in France and South Africa with different names. It's called the Ostuni DOC. It's a red wine. In French it is...
I guess it's called Cinsault. I'm reading it badly, Cinsault. And in South Africa it's called Hermitage. But it's an easy red wine. So maybe that one could go with your aperitivo if you're looking for a Pugliese red wine to have for aperitivo.
And then if you go all the way down to the very south of Puglia, you come to the Salento area, which absolutely beautiful. That's great for beaches. They've got some stunning beaches, but also stunning wines. They produce a lot of wine. Obviously, that's going to be really high alcohol too because it gets incredibly hot in the Salento. And then if you come back up on the other part of Puglia, when you're going back up, what's that part called? Andrei Gallipoli. I only need another coffee. If you come back up around there, they produce a lot of wine too. And that's where you'll find, going back up there, Manduria. Manduria is an amazing wine producing area. And they say that that's where the best of the best Primitivo comes from.
And can you tell us about some of the up-and-coming wineries there, like some of your favourites where you can try some of the typical and maybe some more exciting versions of these local wines?
Well, I have to mention, first of all, it's a small winery, which normally on this podcast we give, kind of bigger wineries, which we will give one to go and visit. But being Australian, we have to talk about one called Morella because it's in Manduria, and I just love this story because it's an Australian woman and her Pugliese husband who are running the winery, and they produce all these different kinds of Primitivo wines. It's a biodynamic winery too, so that can be a little bit interesting to visit because they follow the cycles of the moon, and maybe we might have to do another episode about biodynamic winemaking one day because it's very interesting. But they're making really top quality award-winning wines there. It's a really small winery, so if you're looking for more of an off-the-beaten-path experience, you could go there. And, of course, since the wife's Australian, they speak English. So that's another good thing. Whereas, a lot of these other smaller wineries, they don't. So you really do need to visit with a tour to get the most out of your experience. But we do have another option for you as well.
Which is called I Pastini, which is at the heart of the Itria Valley. So you are in a beautiful land between Locorotondo and Martina Franca. And in this winery, their goal is to recover and promote the ancient grape varieties that were found and grown in Valle d'Itria, in the Itria Valley originally. So they're doing a good job at that.
Yeah, and that's a nice one to visit as well in the sense that on their website, it's very easy to navigate and book a wine tasting in English, which is not always the norm.
As we always say when we talk about Italian wine, whenever you want to visit a winery, always remember to book in advance because that's very important. It's very hard to just show up and have tasting.
And that's because these people are working and actually making wine or doing every other job they have around the winery. So it's really not as much like what we have in the United States or Australia where they have working cellar doors, except for some of the really bigger wine companies like Antinori, maybe in Tuscany and more established places. Yeah. So, yeah, definitely make sure you book.
But we haven't mentioned as well, Puglia also produces white wines.
Yeah.
So if you like white wines, then you're in the right place too. I mean, they really have something for everyone here, as well as sparkling. And even they're starting to make some really interesting spumante. So if you like sweet sparkling, it's for you too. But for the white wines, the main grapes are Verdecca, Malvasia, and everyone will be familiar with Chardonnay.
Mm.
But the Verdecca I love. And on our tour in Puglia, we go to a secret winery where we have this delicious Verdecca. And every time we go, I have to buy a bottle because it's mineral and crisp, and you've got, you know, green apple notes and like the flowers. And it's just perfect with seafood, of course, which Puglia has a lot of seafood too.
It's good to pair with one of the typical regional dishes, which are the orecchiette alle cime di rapa. The orecchiette is the typical pasta shape. As you all know, every region in Italy has their own pasta shape. And in Puglia, they have their orecchiette, which are called like that because they resemble little ears. And this white wine that Lee was mentioning pairs perfectly with this typical dish. So absolutely a must to try.
Oh yeah, I could go for a plate of that pasta and a glass of wine right now. Oh goodness! And so, where is that one produced? Is that in around the Val d'Itria as well?
Yeah, a little bit further down. It's just out of Ostuni,
Okay.
around that area. That kind of leads us as well to talk about rosé too, because in Puglia they also make delicious rosé wine.
Which is not very known in the sense that whenever you think about rosé, you don't often think about Puglia. But they have this interesting way of producing rosé in here, because how do you produce rosé? You either have a blend of red and white wine together, or you leave the red grape in contact, the juice of the red grape in contact with the skin, because the color of the wine is taken by the skins, but not for long.
A couple of hours,
exactly,
6 hours
max.
or something.
In Puglia, instead, they have this interesting system called Sistema a Lacrima, which you could translate as like teardrop system or something like that.
Teardrop, yeah.
And they put the red grapes in big bags, and they gently press it, they gently squeeze it so that the must, the juice, the best part of it, drips down like tears. So it stays in contact with the skin for a very, very limited amount of time. And it drips down from these bags like a tear. And and they produce rosé wine in this way, which is a unique way to do it.
Yeah, we've never seen it anywhere else or heard about it anywhere else before.
Yeah, and they use Negroamaro for it. So the red grape, one of the most famous of the region, and it's a rosé wine Negroamaro. So if you like Negroamaro but you want it a bit lighter version, you can try this rosé wine.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Oh, and what would you eat with that one?
You could eat as well something light, for example, some fish, for sure, or a pasta dish,
or bacala as well. They even have down in
But I would suggest it also for a nice aperitivo. It would go nice, perfectly.
Yeah, or
by the beach.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when we're on tour in Puglia, I have to say the rosé is always everyone's favorite because it's that perfect in between, and the weather's always kind of balmy and not too hot but not too cold. So everyone's kind of pairing their rosé with all the delicious things that we eat, from the burrata that's kind of drizzling down your face because it's so creamy and delicious, to the beautiful fresh seafood and lots of raw seafood, because they have in Bari episode you were talking about the Pugliese sashimi style seafood. Even with that goes delicious.
Bits of crunchy tarali as well.
Exactly.
My God.
Yeah, we love them.
Yeah, they're so good, aren't they? They're so Moorish. So the tarali are the little biscuits or savoury cookies, and they're really crunchy and they come flavoured with different things and yummy. And you can't, once you pop, you can't stop. That's what it going.
Yes.
They're addictive.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's not mass produced. Some lady's been hand rolling that, so it's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you come on tour with us, we learn to make tarali biscuits too, which is very dangerous because you won't ever stop making them.
Now, the thing about Puglia, and I can imagine it's especially true with the wineries, is that you will definitely need a car to get around, right?
Absolutely.
Yes,
look,
correct.
I mean, You mentioned in the Bari episode as well that that's a good base if you're not going to have a car, because you can get to a few places like Polignano, Monopoli or Lecce. But besides that, it is extremely difficult if you don't have a car.
I mean, part of the beauty of it is it's not a slick operation. It's really more rustic, and you're really meeting people that are trying new things and doing something a little bit different. And they're like, learning along the way. And I just think that's so much more charming in a lot of ways than if someone's, like it's nice to have a very professional experience, but sometimes it's also really lovely to have a charming, like face-to-face local experience.
Yeah.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. And the people in Puglia, the hospitality is another level. They're so generous. They're so friendly and welcoming. So when you visit these wineries as well, that's the experience you're going to have. It's not a commercial experience at all.
It's very authentic, I would say. Yeah.
Even if we don't, like using that authentic word.
Oh, that's me. That's my issue. But with those wines, for me, my instinct is that they're like easy drink. You drink them straight away. Are they these things that you cellar or not so much?
Well, you can, given that the quality of the wine production is improving constantly, now you can, especially with the Primitivo. You could definitely
the red wines especially, the one that age in the barriques, of course.
Yeah,
But if you want to buy, there are, as we said, like red wines, for example, the Ostuni Doc or the white wines. You can
Bombino
buy
Nero. Yeah. That's something to just drink now.
Yeah, and we're not saying that because they're not good. They are very good.
Yeah. They're ready to drink.
Exactly.
They're
ready to eat once they hit the market. Yeah.
Especially the white wines. Like I wouldn't, I'd drink them sooner rather than later as well.
Yeah. Are there wineries set up for shipping to all different parts of the world?
Absolutely.
Depends which one you go to, but most of them, I would say, especially the ones we go to on tour, you can ship. Just to Australia is always the issue, is the only thing anywhere that you go, because shipping's so expensive. Some wineries offer it, but it's a really high price tag. But to the States, it's always pretty reasonable to ship.
So I feel like it's worthwhile to ship if you can sell things for a while, but if it's something that's quick and easy to drink, it's maybe not worth shipping. Puglia's, I think it's a very exciting place to visit, and for so many levels, the food, the wine, and the beautiful scenery as well. But I just had a thought as well, like maybe visiting in winter is probably not a good idea. I think most of these places will probably be closed, right?
Yeah, I think
it's not the best time in winter, I would say.
Yeah, the only reason I would maybe visit in winter, which I know is on your bucket list, Katie, is Christmas time. But it wouldn't be from a wine perspective. That would just be from, seeing the beautiful Christmas lights set up in these charming towns in the Itria Valley. But, yeah, not for wineries.
No, probably not for someone reached out to me after the Bari episode and said, when's the best time to visit? And I do think it's probably late spring to early fall, early autumn, because, like we're saying, they're not as mature as the other side, which is great of the country, and they like to have a nice long break.
Absolutely, yeah, and then they work really hard in the summertime.
They do.
Likewise as well, visiting in the heat of the summer, that's also maybe not the best time if you can't head, because it gets so hot. So if you're going to do that, just think you're going to be at the swimming pool of your villa or at the beach. You're not going to want to do a lot of sightseeing in the heat. It gets extremely hot.
Yeah, up in so 35 to 40 degrees Celsius and above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, it is a very, very hot area, which, lucky for them, makes amazing wine. So that's good.
Exactly.
Oh, well, I just love how Puglia is quietly building itself into a force to be reckoned with, both in terms of wine and tourism. It's really quite the renaissance, and I can't wait to see what's ahead for them. Can you?
Oh, we can't wait. Yeah, we love Puglia. But, yeah, it's exciting as well because they haven't reached their full potential yet, you know, in everything, I guess, in terms of wine and also, some of these hotels that are being developed. Yeah, let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I think I might be going back. I'm feeling the pull of Puglia, definitely. Okay, now if our listeners are keen to learn more about Primitivo and the other wines of Puglia and the Teardrop Rosé, how can they stay in touch with you and Italian Wine Tales?
So you can follow us on Instagram at Italian Wine Tales, as well as on our website, italianwinetales.com. And we also have a Facebook community, Italian Wine Lovers, where people share their favorite wines and have a bit more of a collaborative discussion about Italian wines and, what everyone's drinking at the moment.
Amazing. So, grazie, Olivia and Andrea. Thank you for sharing your knowledge of this delicious wine region with us on Untold Italy today.
Thank you, Katie. It's always a pleasure.
Us.
Thanks for having us again. Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Puglia really is so exciting these days, from the wine to its lovely cities and towns, and of course the delicious food that we pair with the wine. I've yet to meet anyone who was disappointed by the time they spent in Puglia, including some very particular wine-loving friends who were a bit sceptical of what they would find there, and were pleasantly surprised. Our Untold Italy tours of Puglia are extremely popular, and we could have sold out those trips several more times, the ones that we offered in 2024. So if you're interested in joining us to explore this fascinating region and enjoy its amazing wine and visit wineries carefully selected by Olivia, you'll need to sign up early to avoid disappointment. As always, we've provided a list of the wines, grapes and places mentioned, as well as a link to our Puglia tours into our dedicated show notes for this episode, found at untolditaly.com/229. Make sure you have a look around our website while you're there. There are hundreds of articles designed to help you build your dream trip to Italy. We're very proud of the information we send out into the world. It's based on a love for Italy and checked regularly so you know that it's up to date. Grazie. Thanks to all our wonderful listeners for your ongoing support of Untold Italy. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did, it would be wonderful if you gave us a rating or review in your favourite podcast app. That helps us reach more Italy-loving travellers just like you. On next week's episode, we're heading to another beautiful part of Italy to explore and uncover unique experiences in the Untold way. But until then, it's ciao for now.
The Untold Italy podcast is an independent production. Podcast editing, audio production and website development by Mark Hatter, production assistance and content writing by the other Katy Clarke. Yes, there are two of us. For more information about Untold Italy, please visit untolditaly.com.